Are you caught in the whirlwind of overwhelming responsibilities? And does the very thought of Monday morning send chills down your spine? Well, it's time to toss those feelings out the window. Welcome to Season 3 of the Take Notes podcast, where you get to make yourself the priority in order to show up as your best self. I'm your host, Jen Rafferty, former music teacher, emotional intelligence practitioner, mom of two, and founder of Empowered Educator, and I've been where you are. In this season, we're not just talking about surviving, we are diving deep into thriving. Are you ready to take the lead in your life? Well, let's do this. Hello, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Take Notes. I am here with somebody who I met a few weeks ago, actually, at this point, and I was really taken by his message and the way that he delivers his message. And so today I am talking with the incredible Michael Katz, who has been a professional storyteller for over 30 years, both as a performer and as a teacher of the craft. And he works with mostly elementary schools now, while his public performances have been at such illustrious locations as the openings of LA Getty Center and the Disney Concert Hall. And his CD of stories Far Away and Close to Home was given a Parents' Choice Silver Honor Award. And in the last 15 years, he has also been teaching mindfulness in elementary schools, primarily with K through 2 students. And his storytelling is completely magnetic and, dare I say, entrancing. And I'm really excited to talk with him today. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here on the show. I really appreciate your time and your talents. Thank you.
It's a pleasure for me. Thank you for asking me.
So I would love to dive in and really understand why storytelling for you.
Well, storytelling was something that found me. I knew I wanted to work with children in some capacity. And so this was after I think I knew I wanted to work with children when I was a kid myself, which is funny, but I was maybe because I liked my teachers. Oh, and I liked being a kid. I liked being an elementary aged child. So I went to school in psychology, graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in psychology, and I took a break. I thought I was going to go back to grad school, and that never happened. And what happened was I took what I thought was going to be 1 year off, and the short version is like a friend of a friend of a friend was over at my place, someone I had never met before, and he saw a children's book on the coffee table, and he said, do you like children's books? I said, yeah. He said, would you like to take over my radio show? I was, what? He said, well, I've got this radio show and I read stories on the radio and I'm leaving town and I don't want it to go off the air. It was a university radio station, KCSB at the University of California, Santa Barbara. And he said, if I don't find a replacement, they'll put on a rock show or something. And I said, what do I do? He says, you just read stories for 30 minutes. I said, yes, sure. And I wasn't getting paid. It's just this fun little hobby. Look at this thing I'm doing. And then too long a story for this show, but one door opened to another door, read in our bookstore. Why don't you go to try to get free books at a book convention? Hey, have you heard about the National Storytelling Festival in Tennessee? Someone said. Got on a plane and went there to check it out. Something just kept leading me forward. And, I guess it's that saying yes. And I took a year off I just quit all my jobs. I said, I'm going to try to make this work for a year. And here I am 30 years later. And I love it. It's incorporating all that I wanted to do. I get to be with kids. I was a class clown as a kid, so it brought back that part of me. I find storytelling stories is a powerful way to communicate messages. It penetrates the mind in a way that just saying things doesn't. Or as one of the poems that I love, The Dreamer's Awake. The dreamer's awake, the shadow goes by. When I tell you a tale, the tale is a lie. But ponder it well for a maiden fair youth. The tale is a lie. What it tells is the truth. And I find that stories convey the truth maybe better than just saying it in one sentence. And then there's no imaginary fourth wall between me and the audience. And so it really is interactive. And so it just combined all these aspects that I love and that are part of me. And so it found me. And it's been a really good fit. And when I'm able to teach storytelling to young people, then I'm teaching them the courage to stand up, how to put ideas into words, the power of outlines, all these skills, finding your voice. I emphasize comprehension versus memorization. And so use your own voice, bring yourself to the story. And the growth I see in children who identify as being shy, I create a safe space where they're able to grow. And it's beautiful to watch and fun. And then ultimately what led to the mindfulness teaching was I realized that maybe the most powerful aspect of storytelling is the audience learning to listen and also the performer listening to the audience.
I love that, which is so interesting. You just went there because I caught on to something you said earlier, which is aligned with what you just said. And I would like to start there. You said storytelling breaks down the fourth wall. And you and I had a conversation about our shared performance background. And I love that we shared that. That was a beautiful moment and great conversation that we had. And I think there is something to this breaking of the fourth wall, both literally and metaphorically, for how we connect with one another and each other. So for those folks who don't have theater backgrounds, can you explain a little bit about what breaking the fourth wall means, and perhaps going a little bit into how you do that through storytelling and why that's important?
Great question. In theater, almost all theater, performers are on a stage. The lights are off in the audience. There are lights on the actors. The actors interact with each other. And we say the fourth wall, there are walls on, 2 walls on the side, the wall behind you. And then there's this imaginary wall between you and the audience. And the performers don't look at the audience. They're looking at the other performers. And so the audience is watching these performers. With storytelling, that imaginary fourth wall is gone. Sometimes I'll go to a school auditorium and they'll turn the lights off in the audience. I say, no, turn them on. We're all in this together. This is all shared. I want them to know that I can see them, and I will see them, and I will look directly at them at times as the narrator of the story. When I'm the character in the stories, then the characters interact with each other and create what I call the imaginary landscape of a story, where kind of that magic of like, how's this one person creating this world with no props, no stage setup, just a chair and the body and the face and the voice. So that is what I mean by the imaginary fourth wall. And then one of my techniques that I use a lot is audience participation. And it'll be either call and response, fill in the blank. It's a great technique. You just have to make sure that the audience knows what to say. If I went once upon a, and then I gesture with my hands out to the audience, if I say once upon a, the audience will know to say time. But if I go once upon a time, there was a, the audience has no idea what to say. But as long as it's something that the audience exactly knows what to say, it works. And they'll say it without even, and adults will do it. It's very funny. Sometimes adults will do it more than the kids because you've been invited in. You are invited into this story. So that's one of the techniques of audience participation. And the use of audience participation also, it involves the audience more, so they're more engaged. It tells me if they're following me. It tells me what kind of listeners they want to be. And, it's very important with audience participation. If you don't hear them participate back, that might mean they're not following you. They're maybe a little shy or resistant. So you have to feel that, test those waters, let them know that, no, we're all creating this together. And sometimes it just means they're not into it. So, okay, I won't use audience participation. They really want to watch. And then I will drop the audience participation. But that's the part that I call the listening on the storyteller's part. I have to listen to the audience. Where are they? Really meeting them. And back to theater, if you're in theater, you got to do what you got to do. The lines are set, they're memorized. There's not that flexibility. I can respond to the audience, things that come from the audience. I can change things up. No one else is waiting for me to say something on stage.
Sure. So the other part to that was, why is that breaking the fourth wall important? Because what I'm also hearing you say is there is an underlying sense of creating safety for the audience to invite them in to participate, because being seen and feeling seen is vulnerable. And so can you talk a little bit more about why breaking that fourth wall is so important?
The way I think I'm going to answer that is why it's so important now. We all went through the pandemic together as human beings, educators, etc. And being educated on screen, and since we have so much screen time happening now these days for everyone, that even if a student's camera was on, they didn't feel seen and could basically drift away. Here's a good example. I will tell stories, and 3 years later, kids will be able to recount the story to me. The reason why is there's audience participation. I found that out because another storyteller has a child who's heard all the finest storytellers, my mentors. The child only remembered my stories. And it's not an ego thing I'm saying, because I said, wait, no, these other storytellers are amazing. And we tried to figure out why they remembered my stories. It was audience participation. It was audience participation. So when I'm performing now live, thankfully, it's important to let them know they're being seen for themselves. I'm seen. I think it's what we all want. We want to be seen and heard. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it sure does. Because while we're talking about right now storytelling, which on its own might seem myopic as one channel of the very many ways we can communicate with people, I think there's so much richness in what we can take from the lessons of storytelling, of what it's actually doing for us, creating a connection on a human level. And being seen and heard is such a basic human need. And the craft of storytelling is as old as time. And going back to basics of who we are in this very simple way of sharing truth, I think is really important. And I think you're right, especially now, because while feeling seen and being seen is something that we have to navigate through, because we haven't had the opportunity to feel seen in a while because of the state of things, having your voice be heard is quite another thing. And I know that that's also something that you work with, not just kids, but adults too, in education spaces, of knowing your voice and feeling not just comfortable, but again, safe to speak your truth. So can you speak a little bit about that? I would love to know more about your thoughts and your methods about how you work with that with people.
If I may, there was something you were saying about this being seen and storytelling, and you were talking about how possibly the oldest art form, oldest form of teaching history, of lore, of everything. After the pandemic, I wasn't sure how kids would respond to live storytelling. And I was worried that they wouldn't be into it anymore, wouldn't get it. They've been into it even more. It's in their bones. It's in our bones. I was so happy to see that had not been erased yet. And it's so connecting. It's so connecting. And also at the end of a performance, kids will just walk up to me. It's not like, hey, I'm some big star. No, and let's talk. Let's interact. And I feel they can do that because that wall has been broken. So I thank you for letting me share that as well. The importance of speaking your truth. Well, my feelings about storytelling, when people ask me, hey, do you have some tips on telling stories? I always say, start with a story that resonates for you. So number one, not here, learn this and tell it. It's like, what resonates for you? For kids, I need to choose those stories. But fortunately, I got lucky and chose 4 stories that kids love. And then it's really just an issue of what reading level are they at. So each of my stories that I use, whatever reading level they're at, I have the appropriate story. And other than that, they're stories that they love. Over time, I realized that. For an adult, it then is what resonates for you. And back to my belief in comprehension versus memorization. I teach them to make outlines so that they don't memorize, so that it is their voice that comes through. And, sometimes I'll have a kid say, so this dude was walking down the street, and, later on I'll ask the kids, wait, was dude on the piece of paper? And they'll say, no. I said, is it okay that he said dude? Yeah. Because he's bringing himself to it. And we can feel that. When someone's memorized something, sadly, many of us suffer from perfectionism. I'll put it that way. And we're trying to get every single word right. And when those storytellers get up, they sound like a book. And they tend to be more stressed. They don't connect with the audience because they're looking up in the ceiling, trying to remember words. But if somebody knows what's happening in the story and just shares it from what excites them, now you're bringing yourself to it. Now it's your voice. It's got your mark on it. I've heard these stories and I've told stories, and I'm not exaggerating, over 1,000 times. It's not an exaggeration. I'm never tired of these stories I tell or hear from the kids. I'm still hearing new things in each story. And every time it's being told, it's a new audience. It's always brand new. So there's this beautiful personal mark that we put on our telling that makes it special, alive, and present.
It's so powerful, too, because the confidence that you get to learn to feel in the unknown of something that you just have an outline for is a skill in and of itself. And I'm speaking to this not only as a former control freak, but also a high achieving performer that, especially going through music school or just school in general, the object was to get A's, to have someone say good job and the applause at the end or the standing ovation. And often that happened because I needed to follow a certain recipe that was designed by someone else. So even if I was singing one of my favorite show tunes or an art song by Mozart, I could be expressive, but creative is a totally different skill. And the creativity for me didn't develop until I sought it out for myself much later in life, because creativity meant I was going off script. And Michael, I'll be honest with you, that scared the shit out of me. It was something that was very scary. And so how do you work with people in letting go and speaking from the heart and from who they are inside and being okay with not following a script?
I love what you said. I love what you shared. First, the word creativity is like, I just resonated so much with what you're saying. So thank you. To create a safe space for the storytellers, for that vulnerability, I've got let's see. I always tell students, when you get up there to tell a story, it's impossible to do anything wrong. So first, we're not even performing for an audience of people we don't know. We're in a classroom. So if I'm in a classroom at school, and I always have them sitting on the floor, because sitting at a desk is just not the same, that proximity and all that. And I go, it's impossible to do anything wrong. I said, if you do this and I'll show them how I do it, I'll just stand there like staring out into space. I go, I will be in the back going like this. And I give them the thumbs up, like, right on, man, because he got up and literally that's it. You're showing up. You stood up. And the first time only tells you where you're at. That's all it's for. And I forget this all the time. Of course, there's a zillion things out there I don't do because I want to do them perfectly the first time. And it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
Yeah. Can you say that again? Because that was so powerful. You said the first time tells you where you're at.
It's only there to tell us where we're at. That's it. Yeah.
So powerful.
I mean, every time is there, really. I mean, once you're a performer, it gets a little it's different. But, that first time, it's like, and then I go, it tells you where you're at. And then you want to go maybe the next time you'll get a word out. But don't set the bar at, I'm going to tell like Michael Katz tells, I mean, and I can't tell the way you tell, and you can't tell the way I tell. So the first time just tells you where you're at. Impossible. Next thing I always share with them is, if you forget, And this was the instance. I always share a story about this boy named Billy, and I call him a man boy. Man boys are little boys that already look like men. They they're like it's third grade, and it's just, he's already got like sausage fingers. And he got up. It was like one of these really confident kids who would like to come up and tell their story. And he was like one of the first ones in that arm. Said, Billy, come on up here. And he comes up and he stares at the audience and he just froze. And he's looking at the audience. And then he said out loud, he goes like this is weird. Now I know why everybody forgets. And we all started laughing, And I said, it is weird. It is weird, let's just admit it. It's kind of weird. All these people are staring at you. It's a lot. It's a lot of energy. So if you feel that way, join the club, So I just set the ground like, yeah, this may feel really weird. There's a few of us out there that it feels great. But for those of you that think it feels weird, join the club. Then if you forget, I had a girl get up and she was, she had one of the hardest stories to read, highest level of reading level. And she got up there and I could see the serious look on her face. I could just kind of reading body language. And she starts telling the story and, once upon a time, and I could tell it's memorized. It's like the exact words on the page. It just doesn't sound like her natural voice. And then she forgets for a moment. And then she takes, and you'll be able to see it, but the audience won't. She took her fingernails, both her hands, and start like pressing against her forehead when she forgot and, breathing really hard, like, and I just quickly said, stop, please stop, because she was digging her fingernails into her forehead. She pulls her hands away and you could see like little spots where she was digging the nails in. I mean, this horrible perfectionist thing that many of us live with. And I asked her, how many times did you read the story? And I always tell them to read their story at least 3 times and then stop there. If they read more, then they'll start getting in the habit of memorizing, but read it 3 times. Great for those kids that don't read enough. And great to limit those kids that read maybe too many times. And by the 3rd time, you can write yourself notes that will help you to remember. I said, how many times did you read the story? And she said, 3. I said, how many times did I ask you to read the story? She said, 3. I said, well, maybe you should be proud of yourself. Maybe you should be going like this. And the audience can't see it, but I'm patting my shoulder with a big smile on my face and saying, good job, I forgot. She laughed, which is what I wanted. The kids laughed. And so I have kids now walking up to me a year after I've taught them storytelling, and they'll walk up to me, they'll pat their shoulder saying, good job, I forgot. Just to know that it's to reframe it. So forgetting is a good thing because it means you know it. Just can't remember it. We all know how it is. We try to remember something, we can't. It's when we relax that we remember. I mean, when do I remember things? Lying in bed in the morning and taking a shower. What do they have in common? I'm relaxed. And so when they pat themselves, and the smile is key. They have to smile. And of course, we know when we smile, it sends off the happy.
Yeah, you're right. They have the endorphins and all the good, happy neurochemicals. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you feel better, you smile. And of course, you take a breath, the key to almost all of this. You relax and then you remember. And kids I watch it over and over again. They remember. And then when they remember and start telling for a while, I'll stop them for a moment. I said, did I tell them what to say? And the kids will say, no. I said, did they remember? Yeah. I go, it works, And so this idea of not punishing ourselves for forgetting, a lot of self-compassion.
Well, that story that you just shared about that young girl, we learned that perfectionist habit really early. And it becomes part of our hardwiring, which now so many of us decades later are still, as you said, suffering from perfectionism. And being able to create new neural pathways for that little girl where it is safe to forget, it is safe to show up and not be perfect is really powerful. And I would love to reflect back at you, which I hope this is okay. Having the adults in these spaces, like you show up for these kids, knowing that about themselves, and you get to say, watch me do this, inherently create safety for them to do it themselves. And that's a game changer for anyone who gets to work with you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. And I will, after I tell a story or when I go to schools that teach storytelling, it's always, I do a residency. And so if they see me in the assembly, I will tell them later on, I forgot something during that story. Do you know when I forgot? And they won't, And I go, well, I did good job. I forgot, but I'm a performer. I have to do it differently. And then I show them the famous thing of buying time, where I told this story once. It was at the Disney Concert Hall, which you mentioned. And the story had 3 riddles to it. And I got the riddles out of order. And it's this king doing these riddles, number 1. And unfortunately, I said number 2, the second riddle. The second riddle, and I said riddle number 3. And then when I got to the third one, I couldn't remember it. And there I am in front of 1,000 people. And I'm the king. And the third riddle is, and it's like, oh, crap. Of course, I didn't say that. And I go, the third riddle is, and I took a breath, a big smile, and I go, this one better be good. And I was doing a good job. I forgot. I tell the kids that. I just do it a little differently. And then I smiled and took a nice breath and, told myself everything's going to be okay. And then it came. Aha! I went like that. And I heard some laughter from the audience, but they didn't know I'd forgotten. They liked the aha, and I'm great.
Yeah, that's just it. That's the whole thing. There is no script. There is no right. There is no perfect. There is no wrong. And we create all of these limitations for ourselves because of our fear of what we might be perceived like or what it means about us. And all of this is just us making things up and creating limitations for ourselves. And what was so interesting and attractive about your work for me is that there are no rules. It is so expansive in its limitless possibility. And I find that so exciting.
Yeah. It was inspiring for me, and maybe it will be inspiring for people listening. Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize, I believe it was, for literature.
Oh, yeah. The controversy about that. I remember that too.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, he didn't show up for the awards. And Patti Smith, who is a musician I happen to adore, she showed up and she sang one of his classic songs. And there she is in front of the king and the queen, dignitaries from around the world. And she is doing the most beautiful version of his song. So beautiful. And she starts stumbling and forgetting the words. On the biggest stage you can imagine. She tries to get back and she can't. And you're just going, oh. And she says to the audience, I'm just so nervous. And she looks at the orchestra and, can we start again? She started up again, finished it beautifully. Like, that was amazing that she just found her place again. The ovation she got was for that moment. She was a human in front of all of us. And it was okay. It was okay. And they were given permission. Back to what you said. Maybe they're inspired by me sharing that with the students. Well, I was inspired by watching Patti Smith do it on a world stage and do it so gracefully. We need more of that. We need more just honesty, vulnerability.
Oh, that is a beautiful share and so important because of just that recognition of one's humanity and the sharing of that is really special. And you get to do this in this really cool, fun way, which is so awesome. So I could talk to you for hours. I am so interested in really how it is that you do what you do. But one of the things that was also so fun for me that day that we met was actually hearing you share a story. So I would love for you to share a story with the audience today.
It's possibly a story people have heard, but I think it's profound, especially nowadays. Once, there was a gossip. And this gossip, he talked about everybody behind their backs. Everybody, including his friends. And I say that loosely because is somebody who talks behind your back truly a friend? Well, his friends thought about this as well. And they started thinking, well, if he is talking about him behind his back, then he's probably talking about me behind my back. And well, that's not somebody I can trust. One by one, his friends left him until he was all alone. The gossip knew he had a problem. So he went to visit the wise woman. And he walked in to her home and said, "Wise woman, I need help." And she didn't even need to hear anything more because she knew what the problem was. And she said to him, "Go home, find a pillow, get a knife, stick the knife in the pillow, cut a hole in it, hold the pillow above your head, and run back here." Sounded strange, but she was the wise woman. So he went home and he got a beautiful feather pillow, got out the knife, stuck it into the pillow. Feathers all over the place. Cut a hole in the pillow. More feathers falling out of the pillow. Held the pillow above his head, feathers snowing down upon him. Ran to the wise woman's home, feathers blowing in the wind. By the time he got to the wise woman's house, the pillowcase was empty, and he held it in his hands and he looked at the wise woman and said, "What should I do now?" And she said, "Go and gather all the feathers." I can't do that. The wind's blown them all over the place. And she stood up and she looked at him and she said, "It's the same way with words. Once they're out of your mouth, you can't take them back." So as we go out into the world, it's a good idea to ask ourselves 3 questions before we speak. Is what I'm about to say true? Is it beneficial? And is it the right time?
Thank you for that. It's a gift. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking for it.
So many of us in this world are so focused on being productive and hustle and getting the next paycheck and making sure we take the kids to the soccer practice and sure dinner is ready in time and everyone's in bed at the right bedtime and getting up early and going again and doing the whole schedule every day. And we very rarely take time to receive story like this. And I think this speaks to not just storytelling in this way, but also art in general, where we can be sitting in the quiet without all the noise and experiencing something that speaks to our soul. And that's really powerful. And like I said, it's a gift. And I hope that those of you listening consider taking time to prioritize the quiet and receiving of this gift, because it's available not on your phone scrolling on Instagram. It happens through purposeful connection with each other and especially through art.
And nature, I'd say.
Yes. Well, isn't that the greatest art of all?
Yeah. Of course, I've got a podcast playing while I'm cooking. Can I just cook and be into that? Or can I sit down in a chair outside and do nothing? We've only had so much time, but when we were starting, you were saying, if I wanted to see changes in schools and what kind of changes would I like to see? One of them would be do nothing time. We need to learn how to do nothing, to just be.
Yeah, to just be. Less doing, more being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relearning that.
Yes. More of that, please. And so I will now officially ask you that question. If there is more there, what is your dream for the future of education?
First, teachers need more support. And I think we need to prioritize education. So, we can go back and forth with the debate. Are teachers paid enough? So forth and so on. We need to make it attractive enough to want to do it and to say, I can pay the bills. That my heart is there, but it alleviates those concerns. And to have enough support for a teacher because the needs of students now are greater, and I've just seen it over 30 years now. And it will allow more students to be seen, the teacher to be more supported, to be able to do more of the teaching, more of the arts, always. All of this is open to discussion, of course, but, less emphasis on a lot of the testing, more nature. There's an organization in our town called Wilderness Youth Project. And the radical thing that Wilderness Youth Project does is they have no location. They're outside. And now we're fortunate in Santa Barbara where I live. You can be outside. It'll be cold. It gets cold here. I mean, I know people from the East Coast that come here and get cold, but you prepare for it. And that idea of being outside, just more outside time, I want to say this, the stuff we call soft stuff, more of that.
More of that. Yes. Because the hard stuff creates armor. More of everything you just said. I appreciate you sharing that. And I ask that question really intentionally to all of my guests because I know that when we speak our dreams, we're closer to making them a reality. So thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
Michael has been fantastic. Like I said, I could talk to you forever, but unfortunately, we cannot do that on the show. So for those people who are listening and want to know more about you and the work that you do, where can they reach you?
Best way is to start through my website. I'm not a very social media savvy, but I do have a website, and it's storytellermichael.com. And that's the best way to contact me. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the link to the website will be on the show notes. So we'll make it super easy for people to get in touch and learn more about everything that you do in this world. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your talents. I really appreciate you talking with me today.
And thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet you.
And if you loved today's episode, please make sure that you share with a friend and write a review, and we'll see you next time on Take Notes. Incredible, right? Together, we can revolutionize the face of education. It's all possible, and it's all here for you right now. Let's keep the conversation going at Empowered Educator Faculty Room on Facebook.